It's time for our first mock draft battle of the 2025 NFL Draft, featuring two titans of the industry. In the left corner, you got a guy who's a former NFL player, kick returner, specialaire, and now he's a journalist. He's one of the top in the NFL out there, Bucky Brooks. And then in the other corner, a challenger at the will. He started out as an area scout, worked his way up through the industry, and now is regarded as one of the top guys in all of draft content. I also think he should get royalties for Aunt Jeremiah's pancake mix. We'll call it Uncle Jeremiah. It is Daniel Jeremiah.
It's time to do.
So let's get into this battle royale, one for the ages. Here are the quick little rundown rules, even though I hate rules, but this is how it's going to work for each team. We're going to have their picks. I have to pick which one I like better. There's no half points in this. It's straight up as tough as there's going to be some tough ones, I'll be honest, but I have to pick a winner unless they are the same players. If they're the same players, it's an automatic tie, and then they each get a point. And if it comes down to a tiebreaker at the end, what happens to decide, because there will be no tie in this, okay? There will be a winner declared. And if it does come down to a tiebreaker at the very end, the tiebreaker will be either the first pick, and if they tied there, then it'll be the last pick. So it'll either be the first pick or the last pick. And if there's still a tiebreaker, we'll go to 16. So between those, we should be good to go. Let's get into it here. Starting off with the first pick for both of these guys. They went Abdul Carter. I love it. I think it's a great one for both of them. And they both agree in this scenario. So they both get a point here. A tie round. Abdul Carter would be a fantastic player for the Tennessee Titans to continue to add firepower to that defense. Get a true top-tier edge rusher that I think Abdul Carter can be. On to the Cleveland Browns, and this is also the same pick, Cam Ward, so it's going to be a tiebreaker. In terms of the fit and feel, you got to swing for a quarterback at some point. I understand that. I probably still lean Travis Hunter. He's my number one player on the board. Him and Abdul Carter, it's very close, but those two guys, it's tough to pass up on, in my opinion, even though quarterback clearly a need for this Cleveland Browns team, so I can understand that. Ward has a lot of upside, too. And then we go on to our first different pick here, and you got Bucky Brooks going Shedeur Sanders on the left, and you got Daniel Jeremiah on the right going Travis Hunter. Very, very tough. I like Shedeur Sanders. He's my number one quarterback. I think he's going to end up somewhere in like the 7 to 15 range. At least that's where my view on Shedeur Sanders as a quarterback in the NFL. I don't really know if I see him as a top 5 quarterback. Just don't know if he has those type of traits. However, I still think he can be a really, really good quarterback. He certainly seems like a guy that has all the work ethic, the processing to be an NFL guy, the work ethic, all those tools. I'm not worried about the high-end profile stuff of the Sanders, the primetime stuff. I actually think he's a very chill dude and kind of gets overworked for that, and that gets break through the mud with Shedeur Sanders. And the Giants clearly need a quarterback, but I'm going to give the win to Travis Hunter here. He's just my number one overall player. I have to go with my big board, even though the quarterback, you need to find a franchise quarterback. I totally understand that. It is a tough one. I'm going to go Travis Hunter, though, here. So I'm going to give Daniel Jeremiah the edge. Just you can't find guys like Travis Hunter very often in drafts. That's why it's a unique pick for me. And then we go on to the New England Patriots. They both go Will Campbell, so this is going to be a tiebreaker, and not much explaining to do here. I think Will Campbell is a plug-and-play left tackle for this team. You're going to talk about the arm length. That's going to be a big discussion at the Combine. We'll see if he checks that 33-inch mark that everyone needs. Bark. But they certainly are going to have to find a left tackle to protect Drake May. Then we go on to the Jaguars. And you got Mason Graham for Daniel Jeremiah. Really good pick there, too. There you have been looking for a stud interior player for a minute. I think Mason Graham has one of the highest floors in this entire draft class. I just feel like he's going to be a very, very good player. Very strong hands, gets off blocks consistently. Maybe doesn't have elite athleticism, but he's a very good football player. On the opposite end, though, you got Travis Hunter going to the Jags. This would be a dream scenario. If this was the board for Jacksonville, you're running. You're running to the board. You're just celebrating in awe. He's, like I talked about earlier, is my number one player in this draft. So this is an easy pick for them. He can help out in the slot if you end up moving on from Christian Kirk at some point. But he also can help you out right away as a cornerstone in the cornerback room, thus resulting point for the Jags and Duval. And then we go on to the Raiders here. Okay, we got Shedeur Sanders for Daniel Jeremiah. I love it. Got to go get that quarterback. Tetairoa McMillan, also a very good pick here, though, for the Raiders. They need an outside weapon. Jacoby Myers really stepped up this season. Do they have a true outside weapon? That is the question. Brock Bowers, a super target, a super beast. I like to call him Super Bowers. However, they still could use another playmaker, and Tetairoa McMillan would be a great addition. However, I am going to go with Shedeur Sanders, and I'm going to give Daniel Jeremiah the point here. Quarterback is a big need for this team, and I feel like the value makes a lot of sense for getting Shedeur Sanders going quarterback. Then we go on to the New York Jets here. Tyler Warren, I love it. Go get themselves a beast of a tight end. They have not had a beast of a tight end in a long time. So you're getting that Tyler Warren, who to me is one of the safer prospects as well in this draft class. Just such a tough-nosed guy. Heard nothing but great reports of him as a work ethic guy. But you see it strictly on film. He is strong at the catch point, got extremely physical prowess, and what he brings to the table also as an inline blocker. Still needs to work on his technique as a blocker, but he has all the physicality to do so. And then you got Mikael Williams, edge rusher from Georgia for Bucky Brooks. Not a bad pick, actually. I'm growing on Mikael Williams. I've been listening to him at the combine and some of the things he's been talking about here. I think he's going to put the work ethic in there. He is raw as a pass rusher. And while the Jets could really use someone like that to go along with Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson may need some time to get fully healthy and whatnot, they could use a strong side edge in there or another edge rusher. I do feel like maybe it's a little bit of a luxury pick. Tyler Warren would be an immediate impact for this team and a culture setter for Aaron Glenn and this new organization. So I'm going to give the point to Daniel Jeremiah, and I just have Tyler Warren as an impact right away for this football team. Then we go on to the Carolina Panthers. You got Jalen Walker, the edge rusher, hybrid linebacker, off-ball linebacker, whatever the heck you want to call it, Jalen Walker for Daniel Jeremiah. Panthers need a disruptor, and Jalen Walker is definitely a disruptor. Now, I'm higher on other guys. I think that he is very raw. The traits are there. I will never deny that with Jalen Walker. He has got insane athletic profile, and he's somebody that, with the right development, he could be a Micah Parsons-like impact. But to me, he's just so raw. I don't think he has the play strength of Micah Parsons, and his overall pass rush plan is so limited. He basically just won with speed. He won on spies and, A-gap blitzes and things like that and whatnot. So a lot of talent. I don't deny that. But Mason Graham is a clear-cut impact that will help this Carolina football team out right away. I got to give the point to Bucky Brooks for this one. On to the New Orleans Saints. You got Jalen Walker. We just talked about Jalen Walker and some of the strengths and the weaknesses with him. Mike Green for the New Orleans Saints. Both fantastic additions for this football team. I am going to give the edge to Mike Green here. Now, I think Walker, there is more upside with Walker. Even though Mike Green has a lot of upside, I think Mike Green is a better pass rusher right now. I think he's got a lot more tools already built in with him. As I talked about earlier, Jalen Walker, I don't think he's going, I don't see him as a bust or anything like that, but I do think there's going to be a developmental process here. So I'm going to give Mike Green the edge. Don't know if I love either of the picks. I think it's a little bit early on both of these. Mike Green, we'll see how he tests out. I'm sure Jalen Walker is going to test out really well. So will Mike Green. However, like I talked about, I'm going to give the edge just strictly off of film in this case scenario. I think Mike Green is a better pass rusher right away for this New Orleans Saints team. Then we go on to the Chicago Bears and Kelvin Banks Jr. It's a tie here, and both will be really good additions for this Bears football team. I imagine he would start right away at left guard, but he would have a competition at that left tackle position with Braxton Jones. And ultimately, you gotta help that offensive line out. Keep Caleb Williams up and running, or not up and running, hopefully up and walking right in that pocket. Then we go on to the San Francisco 49ers, and you got Will Johnson for Daniel Jeremiah. A great pick there. It's just a BPA approach. Even though Mike Green might be the bigger area of need, you've got some young corners in this room. You got Renardo Green. You got DeMarador Lenore. You can find a free agent if you lose Travarius Ward in free agency. So I don't think cornerback is the biggest need. Mike Green would be a bigger impact for this team going forward in the future. However, Will Johnson, to me, I'm giving the edge to Daniel Jeremiah because I am just a little bit high. I'm actually quite a bit higher on Will Johnson than Mike Green, even though Mike Green is certainly a player that I feel really good about in the teens. If you're getting him at like 15 or a trade back here, that would make so much sense. Will Johnson, though, I got to give the edge. Even though he had a bit of a down season, still a really good football player. And the floor there with Will Johnson is just, I can't pass up on Will Johnson that departed. It was a tough one. This was one of the toughest so far picks that I had to make. But I'm going to go ahead and give the edge to Will Johnson and Daniel Jeremiah, even though I think Mike Green is actually a bigger area of need for this football team and also would be a really good pick too. On to the Dallas Cowboys here. You got Armin Embu and Walter Nolan, both guys with tremendous upside and also areas that this team could very much be looking to address on both sides of the football as well. So this is a very tough pick. I do think it's a little high, ideally, for both of these guys. If I had to say who's higher on my board, it would be Walter Nolan. I have Walter Nolan as a top 15 player, so this is right in the range at 12. So in general, I think this is a good value for Walter Nolan. And he's a guy that has solid athletic ability. Of course, I think his first step can be a little bit better, but I think he's a really good athlete. He's got a really good strength profile. I thought he was super disruptive. Continue to work on more counters. This guy's going to be a disruptive force, though, at the next level. And for the other pick here with Armin Embu, I think he's a guy that I would take more in the back end of the first round. I'm seeing him select even the top 10 of a lot of mock drafts. It's a little high for me. However, really talented guy, very good athlete, and would certainly bring some more run blocking prowess. If you don't feel confident Brock Hoffman can take that role or whatever, then that would be a clear upgrade there and had more competition even for Terrence Steele at that right tackle position, because I do think he can play tackle. Overall, I'm going to give the edge to Walter Nolan. Once again, this was a tough one, but I do think the edge goes to Walter Nolan. It also depends if they lose Osa Odighizuwa. If they lose Osa Odighizuwa, then this would be a clear win for me. They need help there. Let's go on to the Miami Dolphins. This is a tie pick with Tyler Booker, A+. Need offensive interior. You need help on that offensive line in general. Tyler Booker will certainly do that. Then we go on to the Indianapolis Colts here. You got Tyler Warren for Bucky Brooks. This is the pick that you see over and over, so you don't need to explain this one too much. And then you got Armin Embu. Very interesting for them. And he would, more than likely, if you lose Will Fries, then this is a clear spot where you plug him in there, and it makes a lot of sense. So it's going to have to, we'll have to wait and see what happens with Will Fries. But if they lose him, then I like this move for the Colts, actually. I think it's a very sneaky move for this team and something that they could look at. I think Tanner Bortolini is more of a center anyway. I mean, he could play guard for this team and, he's shown versatility. So we'll see how all that works out. Bortolini could be, I think he's anyway the long-term replacement for Ryan Kelly. I'm going to give the win to Tyler Warren and Bucky Irvin, or Bucky Brooks, Bucky Irvin. Hey, that'd be a good one too. On to, I'll probably call him Bucky Irvin a couple of times, I'll be honest, but Bucky Brooks is, that was going to be the win for me. Will Johnson and Mikael Williams here for the Atlanta Falcons. Ooh, man. Now, do you go edge rusher, Mikael Williams, who clearly a bigger need for the Atlanta Falcons? They need an edge rusher. But maybe you get free agent edge rusher, which in case, who's the better player? Who do I have higher on my board? It would be Will Johnson. I think Will Johnson comes in right away. If you put him in there, maybe move Mike Hughes into the slot, if you re-sign him, you have Will Johnson, AJ Terrell, and Mike Hughes. That would be a really good secondary. You bring in a free agent like a Josh Sweat or somebody. I think that would be a really good offseason for this Atlanta Falcons team. So I'm not going to pigeonhole just because of position in these. I also want to acknowledge player and fits and things like that. Will Johnson would be a really nice addition. Mikael Williams also would be I think this is a great value on Mikael Williams too, with a guy with a lot of upside, needs a lot of development. He's probably not going to be a huge impact right away, but I still think he's going to be an impact, especially as a run defender. I have to give the point though to Will Johnson and Bucky Brooks. Just feel like he's going to be a bigger impact for this Atlanta Falcons team right now. And they are in a position where they're going to be able to compete and go for a playoff run. So I think he'll just have a bigger impact right now. Oh man, here's another interesting option for the Arizona Cardinals. You got Kenneth Grant for Daniel Jeremiah and Walter Nolan for Bucky Brooks. Man, it's a tough one. I like Grant a lot. I like Walter Nolan a lot. Both very, very good football players. Grant is going to be more of your space-eating nose tackle that also has pass rushing upside, whereas Walter Nolan's going to be more of your 3-tech disruptor. You do have Darius Robinson in there who can play up and down the line. And is he a little redundant? Maybe, but they're different guys, and they do have some dudes like Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones. However, I do think they could get out of those contracts after this next season, so I'm not super worried about that. And nose tackles are a little easier to find. However, Grant would be a really nice pick. It is so tough. It really is. I'm going to lean towards going upside here. If I had to pick, I'm going to go Walter Nolan. I just think that there's just a little bit more in the tank there, even though I think Kenneth Grant might have the higher floor. So it's kind of like the ceiling versus the floor here. I do think Walter Nolan, I could see him being an all-pro. So could Kenneth Grant. Like both of these guys, really, really fun prospects. Then we go on to the Cincinnati Bengals here. You got Jahdae Barron and Kenneth Grant. So we just talked about Kenneth Grant for the Bengals, and now you go and talk about Jahdae Barron. Now, Grant, here's my only problem with this. He would help this defensive line. But in a way, you're almost saying that the McKinley Jackson pick, we're throwing it out the window because I feel like McKinley Jackson is really going to be their one tech going forward. So that's my only knock on this. It's nothing against Kenneth Grant. I would love this one. It just comes down to you're basically saying you're kind of giving up on that development. I would lean towards bringing in a free agent on the interior of the defensive line. Defensive tackle takes a little bit of time. It's a grown man strength position. I like Jahdae Barron in here to come in, kind of replace Mike Hilton right away in the slot and would be an immediate upgrade in their secondary. He could even play in the safety position for them too. So I like the versatility of Jahdae Barron, and that's why I'm going to give the edge for Jahdae Barron and Daniel Jeremiah. Let's go on to the Seattle Seahawks. You got Gray Zabel and you got Josh Simmons. I like both players here, but I do have to give the edge to Gray Zabel. It's a clear-cut one for me because they need interior of the offensive line help. Now, you need swing tackle, and you could say, well, Josh Simmons gives you that if they have injuries at that right tackle position. I fully expect some sort of positive regression in that regard. Look, Simmons would be a really good pick too for me, so it's not clear-cut. I shouldn't say that. I just think Zabel could be an immediate impact at center for them if they need it with Oli Olufutimi. So you get competition in there, but he could also slide in for Leighton Tomlinson at that left guard position. Simmons, I don't know if I see him as a center, so that versatility, I really am looking for somebody on the interior, ideally, to help that run blocking out. And Zabel is such a phenomenal interior player and what he showed at the Senior Bowl. My point goes to Daniel Jeremiah on this one. He's opening up a lead again here. Let's see if Bucky Brooks can fight back here. But you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, maybe getting Mike Evans 2.0 and Air McMillan. Oh, that would be insane. Oh my goodness. If he fell to this point at 19 overall for the Bucs, that would be a run to the table, just a BPA approach. I'm actually surprised that both guys went wide receiver. I mean, they could use another weapon. Chris Godwin's going to get paid somewhere. They're in works, they're in talks. We'll see if he's brought back or not. Injury concerns are going to be a big question too. Financials, all those discussions. Emeka Buka would be more of a Chris Godwin replacement if you're looking at it there. But Jalen McMillan, I think, can be a good replacement. So I'm not worried about finding that type of wide receiver. I'm going to go ahead and give the edge to Tetairoa McMillan here, mainly because I just, it is close. I do think Emeka Buka is a really good playmaker and certainly not a blown away difference here with McMillan and Ibuka, but I'm giving the edge to McMillan higher on my board. I think McMillan is a top 10 type player in this class. Then we go on to the Denver Broncos. You got Ashton Jeanty versus Colston Loveland. Jeanty, I can't pass up on Jeanty. I know that Loveland would be a really good addition for Sean Payton and this Denver Broncos team. It's a clear-cut need, but also a running back is a clear-cut need. They just didn't have many explosive runs this season. Jeanty's going to turn that around. He's going to turn it around very quick. I got to go Bucky Brooks here. Bucky, you got to catch up here. Oh, Ashton Jeanty again with Omari and Hampton. Look, Jeanty is a clear-cut number one running back. Not saying that Hampton's a bad player because he's a really good football player, also a very good running back, but you got to give this one to Jeanty for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Daniel Jeremiah gets the point. Actually surprised that both guys went with running back for this team. I think interior of the defense line could be an option here. Derek Harmon's still on the board. There's a couple of Tyleek Williams, you name it. Could certainly be guys to go after for this team. You name it, cornerback, another area to watch, a wide receiver, you name it. So I'm surprised, actually. Both guys were unanimous on going running back here, but I'm going to give Daniel Jeremiah the point. Then we go on to the Bolts, the Chargers, and I'm going to go and take a look at this one where you got Colston Loveland and Omari and Hampton. And I do have to give the edge to the Wolverine. Okay, hey, it is what it is, but they need a good pass catcher, reliable pass catcher at the tight end position. They also could use a running back if they lose J.K. Dobbins. I just feel like it's more likely that they bring back J.K. Dobbins than it is that, they lose him. So that's why I think that they get him back on a cheap deal. It shouldn't be super expensive, but they need a pass catcher in there. So the point goes to Bucky Brooks. He's got to catch up here. It was down 4, only down 3 now. Maybe he can make a comeback here. On to the Green Bay Packers. You got Josh Simmons versus Shamar Stewart. Okay, interesting 2 selections. I think edge might be the bigger of the needs, but it's not about drafting just needs. I think Josh Simmons is the better football player. Even though the ACL injury is concerning, it's something you have to look at. Medicals and stuff like that come a long way, and I expect a full recovery with Josh Simmons. And the Packers, they love guys who can play inside out. I think Simmons is a guy that can play on the inside. He's got really good strength and somebody that end up could playing guard for any team that drafts him. I also think he can hang a tackle too. So if you look at this, what my vision would be, you move the Jenkins inside to center if you lose Myers, and then you have Jordan Morgan and Josh Simmons as your starters at the guard position for this next season. But Rasheed Walker is going to be a free agent after this next season. So it would open the table if they aren't able to pay him. Then Josh Simmons could end up moving over to left tackle. Or, Jack Tom can move to left tackle. Josh Simmons has right tackle experience. So I'm going to give the edge here for Daniel Jeremiah. I'm a little lower on Shedeur Sanders. I think he's more of a second-round guy, a lot of traits. But at the same time, I just think he's very raw. I don't know if he has the elite bend either. On to the Minnesota Vikings. Skull, skull, skull. Always got to do the skull chant. But you got Jahdae Barron versus Travion Henderson. Oh, a shot out of a Kendon Henderson versus the ever-versatile Jahdae Barron. And I always, the Barron is flying heavy today. I got to give the edge to Barron because they clearly need secondary. They also could use a running back. Aaron Jones being a free agent, if they aren't able to retain him, then that is going to be an area that they're going to have to look at. Is it a first-round need? Like, they've got other areas on this roster they have to address. Cornerback being a big one. Byron Murphy about to get a big extension. Do they re-sign him? That's going to be a big question, too. He certainly earned it. If you lose him, though, like Jahdae Barron's a perfect replacement, in my opinion, for a guy like Byron Murphy. I got to give the edge to Bucky Brooks and the Minnesota Vikings here. And then we go on to the Houston Texans. You got, two wide receivers, Emeka Egbuka for Daniel Jeremiah and Luther Burden III for Bucky Brooks. And, this is a tough one. Both really interesting prospects. I think Burden has more upside. Emeka Egbuka has a higher floor. Now, you have that experience with CJ Stroud and knowing Emeka Egbuka, so you could make the argument there. I'm going to lean upside. I just got to go Burden here. The talent with him. Missouri's passing offense this season. Not saying it was all on the passing offense and Brady Cook. He was dealing with a lot of injuries, so I got to give him some fairness there. But I do have to say Luther Burden, the talent with him is crazy. Emeka Egbuka would be a nice target too. Really good weapons for CJ Stroud. They need another weapon, so both would be tremendous help. Woo! This is where things get interesting. You got Darius Alexander to the Rams. Oh my goodness. Daniel Jeremiah, what are you trying to do to that defensive line? That would be insane to have Kobe Turner and Braden Fisk with Darius Alexander as a pass rushing duo. Yeah, ideally they need more of a run stuffer, like a big nose guy that can eat up blocks. I think that's their bigger of the two needs. This would be a little bit of a luxury pick, but I would love to see it. Alexander, clearly a Daniel Jeremiah guy, and I would totally respect that. Alexander, I don't have a problem with him going in the first round. This guy has legit upside, man, and he, not just upside, I think he can come right in and be a really good pass rusher, just like a Braden Fisk and what Kobe Turner have been for this football team. So, and Les Snead and Sean McVay, they love to go get these guys, these small school guys too, and whatnot. So very interesting pick. I like it. Just maybe more of a luxury pick, whereas Josh Connolly Jr., also a guy that I really, really like a lot, and they clearly need a tackle of the future. I do expect Alder Jackson to be back, whether it's a franchise tag or a contract extension. He could even, I think he could slide over right tackle. I'm not super worried about that with Connolly. He's got the overall foot talent and the foot speed to do it. It is learning a different position, so there is some uncertainty and unknown there. But Rob Havenstein going last year of his contract, they need to address that position. So that is something where I would say it's probably the bigger of the two needs. And I also like Connolly. He's a first-round grade for me, easy top 15 type of player. So I got to give that point to Bucky Brooks, who is closing now. Okay, it's getting a little close. Bucky Brooks has not even had a lead in this entire process. Alexander, though, would be a fun one. I'm not going to lie. That's a fun pick. On to the Ravens. You got Malachi Starks and also Shedeur Sanders here. Shedeur Sanders for Daniel Jeremiah. As I talked about earlier, I'm a little lower on Shedeur Sanders. I do think it's a really good pick, though, for the Ravens. The exact type of player that they could use. He would be more of a D-end there. And they need more help on that interior, their pass rush. Little bit inconsistent, in my opinion. And maybe the stats don't always show some of that. Just from watching the games, I feel like they were inconsistent as a pass rushing unit. They double team Nnamdi Madubuike all the time, it seemed like. So they need another pass rusher in there. So I really do like that pick. I think it is a very realistic and something that they could do to help out that pass rush. It's just a little raw for me. I still would lean towards a Tyleik Williams, even though maybe doesn't have crazy pass rush upside, be more of a run defender. Or Darius Alexander would be a really good pick, too, if he was available for Daniel Jeremiah there. Malachi Starks would be a really good pick. I mean, he didn't have the greatest season. I do think that this is where his value makes a lot of sense for me in Malachi Starks. He would bring another versatile chess piece in there with Kyle Hamilton. And it would also allow Hamilton to play more of that big nickel hybrid slot corner position. And then you have Ardarius Washington, who also move around, too. But Ardarius Washington, Malachi Starks, that's a pretty good combo. I got to give the edge to Malachi Starks and Bucky Brooks here, even though I do like the Shamar Stewart fit. I think it's a really good fit for the Ravens and what they need. Onto the Detroit Lions. Roar! And they get the same pick here. Donovan Jackson, they're thinking alike in this one, would be a really nice addition to upgrade their guard position. Remember, Graham Glasgow did struggle a bit in my eyes, and certainly got to think about that left guard position. And this would also maybe allow Graham Glasgow to move over to right guard, where he played better last season. So that could be something to keep in consideration. If they lose Kevin Zeitler, this will definitely be a pretty big need. But Mahogany, you figured to be one of those guys for the future. But now you go Donovan Jackson and Christian Mahogany as your two future guards. Hey, keep a strength of strength. Both ending with a tie pick and a point for me, no problem. I don't have to give a point if I don't want to. On to the Washington Commanders here. Ooh, Jahad Campbell. I am really high on Jahad Campbell. He's one of, I would say, my guys, if I had to list it as that, especially for the linebacker position, he's my top linebacker in this class by a wide margin. I would take him over Jalen Walker. That's my opinion. I might even take him over Mike Green and some of those guys out there. Really, really like Campbell. And I do think he's going to be a guy for a creative defensive mind like Dan Quinn, who can utilize him as a pass rusher, but also back in coverage. Certainly has some Micah Parsons traits. He's going to have to get stronger. He doesn't quite have that type of play strength either, but certainly has the length. He has the size profile. Really like Jahad Campbell. And if they lose Bobby Wagner, if he doesn't come back, which I expect him, if he wants to play, he'll be back. No matter what, though, they could use Campbell as a pass rusher, hybrid linebacker. I love that fit for them. And then you got Matthew Golden, also a really good pick here. Jaden Daniels needs another weapon. Besides Scary Terry, you got a lot of guys who stepped up. Diami Brown, you got Omlad Zacchaeus, etc. But this is something, and we'll see how Luke McCaffrey comes along. But they could use another playmaker, and he has some really good route running, solid speed as well. He would add another playmaker and nuance guy next in there to go along with Scary Terry to take a little bit of pressure off of him. Really good picks in both of these. I got to go Jahad Campbell. I'm just higher on Campbell. He's a top 20 player for me on the board, and I think he'd have such a big impact as a playmaker for them on the defense side of the football, wherever you want to line him up. Tough one, though. That is a tough one. Good football players. Buffalo Bills, you got Donovan Ezeraku and Matthew Golden. We just talked about Golden, and he is like a Stephon Diggs type of wide receiver. Now, they did just spend basically their first-round pick. They traded back into the second round and got Keon Coleman. I like Matthew Golden. I think Golden would be a really good pick for this team and exactly what they need as a route runner, somebody that can also get open quick for Josh Allen, even though he doesn't need that, but he just gets another playmaker that can be that Stephon Diggs guy. But Donovan Ezeraku, also a guy that they could really use off the edge. They're lacking some speed, and I know that you can say, well, maybe it's not the greatest scheme fit for them, and that's something you can talk about, but I do feel like at the same time, Sean McDermott's trying to change things up a little bit, brought in some different faces too, and Ryan Nielsen is going to be one of those guys. So expect him to get a little more speed. Javon Solomon's going to be one of those guys. Von Miller, likely cap cut replacement. They need more pass rush. When the moments matter most, they needed more pass rush. Ezeraku, they also need more secondary help as well. So that's going to be another thing I think they could look at. But Ezeraku, I got to give the edge just because I think it's a bigger need. You spend some resources at the wide receiver / tight end position. Love that fit of Matthew Golden, but I do have to give the edge here for Ezeraku as the edge to edge Roscoe. So many puns there with that one. On to the Chiefs. You got Derek Harmon for Bucky Brooks, and you got Josh Connolly Jr. for Daniel Jeremiah. Harmon, really good football player. I like him in a 3-4 defense. He can also play in a 4-3. I don't think he's limited to that. Really like what he brings with a strength profile as a linear athlete. Very, very good. Very explosive off the line. Josh Connolly Jr., though, clear-cut need. The top need for the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll see what they do in free agency, but it's clear as day. The point has to go to Daniel Jeremiah and Josh Connolly Jr. They need a left tackle, and I like his pass protection. He would clearly upgrade in that room. Okay, we made it to the final pick in the Philadelphia Eagles. And Daniel Jeremiah, I have to point this out, he has the lead, but it's not over yet. If Bucky Brooks wins this round, it will go to the tiebreaker. And to remind you earlier, the tiebreaker will go to the first pick. And if there is a tie there, if nobody won that one, it goes to the last pick. So this pick, since it was a tiebreaker, if Bucky Brooks wins this, he will end up winning via the tiebreaker. So let's talk about this. This is going to be very interesting. Bucky Brooks hasn't even had a lead in this entire process of this duel. Could he win this outright with this win here? We'll find out. With talking Malachi Starks, adding another versatile chess piece into this defense, oh my goodness, that would be... Either way, Howie Roseman's going to win with this pick no matter what. But You get Malachi Starks in there, would be the heir apparent for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, I would imagine. And remember, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, still under contract, but he could be cut after this next season. Because if you want to save a little bit of cap, which they got to be tight with their cap, Malachi Starks would fit right in there. Right now, in terms of seeing the field, you got Cooper DeJean, you got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, you got Reed Blankenship. So maybe not tons. Drafting for the future anyway, so it's a really good pick there with Malachi Starks and what he brings as another dominant defender in that back end. Just add more fire for Vic Fangio. Oh my gosh. But this is also adding more fire for Vic Fangio. James Pierce Jr. What another steal this would be for Howie Roseman. He drops to the last pick of the first round. I hear there's some character concerns out there with some anger issues. We'll see how much of that is true. But in terms of just on the field, yes, he's raw as a run defender. He's going to have to get stronger, just like Nolan Smith had to get stronger. James Pierce Jr. has those elite traits you look for from an edge rusher. He's got the size, he's got the length, the athletic profile, and they need another pass rusher. So I think that he would see the field probably earlier, barring an injury, with Josh Sweat being a free agent, Brandon Graham contemplating retirement. You put him in there with Bryce Huff and Jalix Hunt and Nolan Smith. That would be your rotation with James Pierce Jr. as well. So that'd be your rotation of 4. That's a really good group, right? You know Howie Roseman loves those trenches. Oh, this is such a tough one. Who do we give the point to? This is going to be for the win. Whoever gets this wins this. I've made a decision. I'm going with James Pierce Jr. And that means Bucky Brooks wins. What a comeback. He did not have a lead in this entire mock draft battle. Fights back. Was down like 4 or even 5 at one point, and he ends up winning this. What a gladiator effort there for Bucky Brooks. Hey, this was not staged at all. I just went through this. This was one take. Whoever won each round, it is what it is. There, you always can go back and make arguments on this or that, and I totally understand that it's not perfect on who's the winner or anything like that, but this is just who I have. So here you go, Bucky Brooks. Here's your spotlight. You win it. Congratulations, Daniel Jeremiah, too. Good mock draft. But yeah, I got to give the edge. Bucky Brooks with a fantastic win. Hey, let me know what you think about this. I love doing it. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. So hope you guys have a really cool day, and I'll talk to you later.